Hi, this is Bishop Craig in Lansing, and this is Take One for the week of May 16. Peace be with you. I want to thank Director of Communications Chelsea for hosting Take One on my behalf for the last few weeks. And I want to thank Director of Communications Chelsea for managing and coordinating our virtual Synod Assembly. I want to thank the leaders and support personnel that worked together to pull off lots of moving parts. We say that as in one body there are many members, and this assembly especially showed us that we need many members to be one body. So thank you. I want to thank the voting members for their patience and perseverance for hanging in with us all day. And I especially thank voting members who took the time to do the preparatory work, doing the reading, and attending the pre-assembly sessions and the tech help. Thanks so much for preparing for the assembly. The other thing we are thinking about this week is how to respond to the CDC's surprise, some have called it abrupt announcement, concerning vaccinated people do not need to wear masks inside or outside. Boy, I wish they would have waited till Monday to let that announcement out. And so everyone from the bishop and his staff to the pastors and church councils in our congregations are working out what this means. I advise everybody to take a deep breath and to move intentionally rather than quickly. We expect to have some thoughts and guidance out in the next few days under a separate emailing. I've heard doctors on the news say that unless they know that everyone in a room has been vaccinated, they will continue to wear masks. And so the question, of course, as we come together for worship is, how do we know that everyone in church has been vaccinated? So we may continue to wear masks. I think it's kind of neat in places that we can continue to worship outside in the summer. I think that as we just passed resolutions celebrating our connection to creation, maybe that's something we could do, is worship in creation as a way of inviting the creation to join us in praise of God. Not because we have to, but because we can. So the rest of my week, on Tuesday, Kathy and I traveled to Chicago to visit the ophthalmologist as my eye continues to heal. We're looking for the possibility of 10 more weeks of improvement. I really genuinely appreciate the prayers and the best wishes, and especially the cards. Thanks for the cards. I really appreciate having them read to me, especially as we're still largely in the house. And that's another interesting thing. Saturday at the Synod Assembly, I was at the home base with 9 other people, I guess. Most of them, except for the Chase production team, I've known for years and trust well. And it was really exciting. It was also a bit unnerving and very exhausting. So I think we're going to find that even when we can get out, people that have kind of largely locked themselves away during this pandemic, they're going to need time to ease back in to life as it returns to the new normal. So on Tuesday, I go to Chicago. On Wednesday, I have a day-long of synod meetings, and then I'm going to participate in a conversation via Zoom for the Festival of Homiletics that is going on this week. And then on Thursday, it's a Bishop's Day. Both the Region 6 bishops and the Conference of Bishops meet via Zoom on Thursday. So things, in the meantime, I want to work on getting a list of thank you notes together for the Synod Assembly, and then I have some letters to write. And we need to begin to think about how the Synod will be coming back to normal, when and how, and all of that. So I'll be wanting to talk to the staff and the deans and see how that unfolds, the executive committee, that kind of thing. So that is my week. Sunday is Pentecost, and the first challenge of the Pentecost is to decide which of the appointed readings to read. Everyone will make their choice. We used to laugh in the old days and say that Augsburg Fortress would make the choice. It was the choice that was included in the bulletins, but everyone will make their choice. I would choose Acts, Romans, and then John 15 if I was preaching on Pentecost. So I wrote a book. I wrote a book during the pandemic. Some of you know that. And chapter 2 is about the Holy Spirit. It's how do we welcome the Holy Spirit into preaching. And I learned a lot about the Holy Spirit because I didn't know a lot about the Holy Spirit. So, and of course, it's based on these Holy Spirit texts, this and some other ones. So a couple of things that I will just share from my learning. First, the Holy Spirit comes on the company of the apostles and not on individual apostles. So the Holy Spirit is God's or Jesus's gift to the church. So the Holy Spirit is not a gift to an individual opposed from the church, which is why when Paul talks about not only receiving gifts of the Spirit, but needing to discern the gifts of the Spirit, which happens within the community of faith. Because we need to be honest, if we're going to acknowledge a Holy Spirit, there are some pretty unholy spirits running around. The virus might be one. Ego might be one. Greed might be one. Racism is certainly one. So when we get individual revelations, we need to test them out with the community of faith to make sure that indeed it is the Holy Spirit. So, yes, the Holy Spirit may tell me it'd be great to spend $2 million of the synod's money, but I better check that out and not just go off moved by what I think is the power of the Holy Spirit. So that's one. Secondly, in John 15, Jesus says that he will send the advocate who will testify on Jesus' behalf. And Jesus tells the disciples, you also are to testify on my behalf because you have been with me from the beginning. And if we go back to Acts, when the Holy Spirit comes, great experience, the sound of rushing wind and tongues of fire. And what does Peter preach about? Not the Holy Spirit. Peter preaches about Jesus. So from the Lutheran confessions, we remember that the Holy Spirit gives faith where and when the Spirit wills to those who receive the gospel. So Jesus is, if you will, the what of preaching, and the Holy Spirit is the how of preaching. If Jesus is the content, the Spirit we might think of as the power. One author I wrote said, Jesus is the word of preaching, and the Spirit is the breath. So if you only have word, the word gets stuck in our throat. And if we only have breath, the breath has nothing to say. So we proclaim Christ in the power of the Spirit. That's what goes on at Pentecost. I love the word and breath analogy. It comes out of the patristic period of the church. So if you're preaching on Pentecost, preach about Jesus and talk about the Spirit being at work in the church as the gospel is proclaimed. And then the Romans text talks about the fact that the whole creation is groaning with birth pangs. And, we just had resolutions on climate change, which is kind of where I said, boy, let's worship outside, not because we have to, but because we can. Romans reminds us that the Spirit is at work not only in human beings, but also in the creation. A few months ago, I guess, I talked about the book of the Bible and the book of nature, and I would remind us of that, and that the Holy Spirit is at work in creation. I know that firsthand, personally, and the Spirit seems to come to me when I'm sitting at the lake. Always been that way. Human beings somehow become connected to God when they're in nature. So those are my Pentecost thoughts, which I'm delighted to share with you. Again, thanks for a very busy and a very good weekend. I look forward to being in touch in writing later in the week about COVID. Please take care and be safe, and the peace of Christ, the power of the Spirit, be with you always. Take care.